when you rent an apartment or a house, there's no appreciation.
Hello and welcome to Change and the Market, your mindful guide to the ever-changing real estate world. My name is Peyton Beck. I'm here at Masiello HQ, and with me, as always, is author, entrepreneur, two-time best-selling author, entrepreneur, and CEO, Chris Masiello. Chris, how are you today?
Good, Peyton. Good to be with you.
Yeah, so we were in September wholeheartedly, right? We're halfway through. Things are getting crazy going into Q4. My leaves have started changing colors here, which is very, very exciting for me. I love fall. I'm getting pretty excited.
Yeah, well, fall's fine, except what happens after that.
Oh, what? I'm not a summer guy. I prefer layers. So.
Oh man, hotter the better.
Awesome. So today, Chris, I actually have brought to you a article by CNBC about the rental market. Something a little bit different than what we normally talk about, but it seems like there have been some pretty big shifts compared to where we were, back in 2022. I think that their numbers say that, the August price range for renting has cooled off quite a bit compared to last year. I think we're basically right at where we were versus an environment, 6 months ago that seemed to be nothing but going up. And I guess when I read that, I was curious what your takes would be on how that's going to impact the housing market.
Yeah, that's a really good topic, and we can kind of back into what's the value of renting versus buying or buying versus renting, because there's always that kind of comparison. But generally the rental market, there's a lot of private equity money put into rental housing. And so as real estate was producing really high returns, but still is, but not as high. There's really a rush of capital into the rental markets for real estate investment trusts or the production of rental units and to meet demand. And there is this kind of quirky demographic view that goes back about 10, 12 years ago. But it's had this like lingering impact on the rental market. There is this notion that millennials would not want to own houses that they would prefer to rent, and because they were more mobile, a little more transient, not that committed to maintaining a house. All these things are really kind of quirky, and the reality of that is that. Like I was brought up with a house with a backyard. I'm guessing you were brought up with a house with a backyard. Most people were brought up with houses in a backyard, and that's how you want to bring up your kids. And now the millennials have fully entered the housing market. There are more millennials than there are baby boomers by quite a bit, actually. There's 55 million baby boomers of different vintages, and 62 million millennials, right? And then there's other demographic groups that are smaller. And so I think like a lot of opportunity, when there's a lot of opportunity, there's a rush to fill it, and then sometimes it gets overfilled. So there's probably slightly more rental units than there is demand right now. And I think that's obviously, it could be, it depends where you are in the country too, right? I mean, it will vary, region to region. There's some regions where rental housing is more of a necessity than others. But yeah, that's where it came from is just this rush of really private equity, venture capital money to get in to kind of seize the markets. And the other part about it was that in some really tight rental markets, there was like literally bidding for rentals, like we saw, bidding for houses. But the problem with a rental is that it's not really an asset, like what it says. You're just renting it. So overpaying for it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
So do you think that some of the ongoing relationship between the rental market and the housing market has to do with what we kind of talked about last week of just housing is expensive and it's going to continue to be so?
This is the quintessence of supply and demand. It really doesn't get any more simple than this. And it really doesn't matter where you are in the country. There is more demand for housing. I'm going to say purchase housing. Okay. There's more demand for purchase housing than there is inventory to meet that demand. There are a few pockets where maybe that's not the case, but they are very few. But so generally, that's the condition. There's this ongoing debate, which I always think is kind of funny, is that, well, should you buy or should you rent? Well, look, here's the deal. You buy a house, you get to deduct your real estate taxes, you get to deduct your interest, okay? When you rent a house, you don't deduct anything, or rent an apartment. There are no deductions, okay? And when you rent an apartment or a house, there's no appreciation. So if you're deducting your taxes and you're deducting your interest, okay, and your house is appreciating at, let's just say 5 to 10% a year, right? So on a $400,000 house, it's somewhere appreciating, somewhere 15, 20 to, $40,000 a year, okay? Somewhere in there, say, 15 to 40,000, depending on where you are regionally. Your actual net cost of housing starts to get down to pretty low, if not zero, because when you factor in the equity, and although you can't spend the equity, it's still an asset you have. The asset, the house, which you're living in and enjoying, costs you very little, and it's a profit center really for your little family, for the business side of your family, right? And as moms and dads, right, we're the CEOs of our little business, which is what we own, our houses and things like that. So, I always think it's a funny debate because there is no debate. And then I think, again, when people are in rentals, for a lot of people, that's just temporary because they're either trying to figure out where they want to live and then go buy, or they're saving money to buy, whatever the case might be. So,
kind of diving into that, do you have any advice for especially younger individuals who are first-time buyers who are just trying to save up that down payment? That can be a hefty toll, especially for people who aren't really financially stable yet.
Yeah, I think in today's age, and we see a lot of our transactions are cash. I mean, cash or mostly cash, right? Or large down payments, from either large down payments or cash. And I think one of the things is to, if you've got parents or grandparents that have some ability to help you, it's a really good way to help you. And the way the estate laws and trust laws are written, there's actually incentives for generational wealth giving. So if you think about generational wealth as like a waterfall, right? And so if you have parents or grandparents that can help you, that is a really legitimate question to ask, because people who have, like, family members who have the ability to contribute, right, to the younger generation, sometimes they might wait until they're either really, really not doing well or they've passed. Well, why would you want to do that when you can watch everyone enjoy it while you're healthy? And so like, if that's kind of in the plan, that's a really legitimate thing to ask. And I think on the savings side, I think it just gets down to your habits. You don't DoorDash as much, just like things, right? You don't Amazon as much, it all adds up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's really probably solid advice for us in general, just to keep, I like the idea of the business side of, whether it's just you individually or your family as that starts to grow, and kind of looking at it in that perspective.
And I think from a personal sense, when we're talking about, buying, right, versus renting, from like a personal advice view, I think a lot of times in life we'll get pigeonholed into thinking a certain way. And really what we really need to do is be expansive in our thinking. So this whole, like, you can deduct the interest, you can deduct the real estate taxes, and then also you're getting appreciation every year. So I think what we have to do is kind of just remind ourselves that we have to look at the entire picture of what we're looking at. So, like, you can't say the mortgage payment to the rent payment. That's not an equal comparison. So we have to be very mindful of understanding, what are the total facts when we're making a decision personally. Then you go ahead and make the decision. I think that's a really good one, from my point of view.
Excellent. Well, that is going to do it for us today on this episode of Change and the Market. If you like this episode, let us know. Feel free to comment and like this post, or follow us on various social medias. We're on TikTok now. I would really encourage you to, if you're on that, follow us. And until then, we'll catch you next week on the next episode of Change and the Market.
Thanks, Peyton. Everybody have a great week. Take care.
I'm going to start my intro with a lower voice this time. We'll see how it goes. Sometimes I feel like I'm a little squeaky.
Oh, okay. If you insist.
Hello and welcome to Change and the Market. See, now I'm just going to screw myself up.